Hey, welcome back to the A.C.E Football Academy. Today we are giving our Olympic soccer preview for the 2024 Paris Olympics. I am Coach Dunham alongside Coach Hamilton, giving you our rundown of the women's Olympic schedules, groupings, matches coming up, as well as the men's on the same deal. We know on the men's side, they are strictly a U23 roster. Right. With the exception of 3 players allowed over that age. The women do not have that notification in all age, including, we discussed this off air, we believe some of the other countries may not have enough numbers to have strictly a U23 type of roster. So, Coach, we're going to dig into the men's first, getting to the groupings. So, Coach, looking at groups A, B, C, and D, do you see something that stands out to maybe either it's the group of death or, it's one, or maybe it just stands out saying, see that there? What are you looking at with the men's side?
Yeah, I think, typical tournament, top 2 stage, and then we'll get into our knockout, the fun part of the tournament. Group D, not so much as the group of death, but if I figure Japan is a heavy favorite in that group. I think Japan, Paraguay, Mali, and Israel. Japan is a heavy favorite in that group. I don't really see a group of death, honestly. Yeah. I feel like when you look, of course, this back in the Copas recently, but when you look at these 4 groups, I feel like you can say, okay, these 2 teams are getting through. Maybe Group B for that second, you got Argentina, Morocco, and Ukraine. Can Ukraine shock and pull off a win or a draw there? So for me, there is no real group of my country in the group stage. If I'm Japan, I'm feeling really good about where I'm placed.
Yeah, for me, looking at this, it's kind of a hodgepodge. It's a mix of big teams down to the small ones. Interesting how these qualifiers kind of run their course here. Right. You have the big teams that you would see in the Euros or the World Cups and stuff like that. You've got Mali, which how did Mali get into this? Israel is really known for their high-profile soccer. Dominican Republic showing up with the team here. For me, that stands out. Egypt. I think we both agree Spain's probably going to walk out. I'm looking at Egypt, maybe Uzbekistan can maybe get a surprise win here and there. In Group A, you've got France and USA. France and USA play. Can USA, with your youth there? And
that's the opening match for the Americans.
First matchup is the 24th on Wednesday at 3 p.m. versus France. So that's going to be quite the kickoff for the American side.
Speaking of, you look great in your speckled jersey.
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up. If anybody's wondering why I'm wearing this, last year, Coach Hamilton and I made a bet of, in a WSR, we give our bets each matchup. We kept points. I unfortunately lost kind of by a landslide here, and the loser had the jersey that the other guy picked, and he can't stand the speckled jersey. I feel icky wearing this thing. However, my son can't wait for me to hand it down to him. Yeah. So as soon as I get home, I will gladly say it is yours.
But no, I think you're right. Spain, can Egypt get out of that group? I kind of like Group B. Morocco, Ukraine, of course, belongs in that group. That's an interesting, I'm gonna say, runner-up finish. For that group. I guess after the Euros coming into this tournament, do you call Spain the favorites? So there are going to be some new faces and things like that, but you got to figure Spain, if not the favorite, is high up on that list.
Let's look at the American roster here. We know that there are 3 players who are over the U23 age limit. That's midfield Halovich with center backs Wynn and Miles Robinson. I think I like that because it gives you a solid back line to work with, which is going to be important going up against the France. Maybe even if you meet up with an Argentina in the knockout round somewhere. So,
and I think that's why he used, of course, Marko Mitrovic. I believe is how you say his last name, is the coach for the U.S. Under 23 team. You know, I don't know if he's in consideration for the main job, but what a great audition here for him to kind of say, even if I'm not going to be the head guy right now, I belong on this roster, be on this coaching staff. So interesting to see how he does. But yeah, I think the reason and you bring up a great point, and you said it, the reason he is bringing Zimmerman and Miles Robinson, of course, we know Zimmerman's history with the men's national team, and then Miles Robinson has been with the national team in the last couple of tournaments, despite not seeing the very much. But it is clear what he's doing while he's bringing these guys with him.
Yeah, and the good thing is we have a few players that have some national team experience in Gianluca Buzio, Tanner Tessman, Kevin Paredes, Chelsea goalkeeper Gaga Slonina. Am I saying that properly?
Nailed it, if you ask me.
So it's nice to know we have some players with some national teams. They have the experience to understand things at a different level. I don't know that the Olympic Games are going to be at the level of like a European Championship, a Commonwealth Cup America, Gold Cup. Is it really going to get the coverage that those other matches would get? So I think it's a good matchup for these kids to get some real world experience while at the same time trying to prove themselves for the national team for the next upcoming coach that's going to be coming in here for them.
And that's the key, right? Go and perform well, and even if we'll talk in a little bit about the finish and are they in competition for a medal and things like that. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But even if, let's just say, they're not in competition for, as a player, I am trying to position myself for that next step, that next national team jump to the big squad and become a member of that team.
All right, Coach, let's move off of the roster and dig into some of the unknowns here. One thing that I love to look at is that dark horse, that team that has a few quality players that no one's really talking about that team or that country. Is there one or two teams that kind of stand out to you saying, no one's giving them any credit, but I'm keeping my eye on this team for this tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are using, I believe, a Seaports kind of look, or maybe it was, so we'll mention a couple of teams that they mentioned, but I'm sure comments on a few other teams. The three teams they mentioned are Ghana, Ukraine, and Paraguay. To me, I've talked about Ukraine. Ukraine jumps out at me in that group that they're in that I think is kind of a wide open group for them. They're going to have to beat Iraq to start the tournament, and then you kind of go from there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in the same boat. Ukraine kind of know the situation going on, Russia and Ukraine. Yes. We feel like we're going to support Ukraine. We know the United States is supporting Ukraine in that situation. And I think that's going to follow in the Olympics here. I think people are going to root for Ukraine to knock out stages and get some positive emotion going on for that country and what's going on. You got Paraguay attending their first Olympics since 2004. I don't know much about Paraguay. You hear a lot about Uruguay and the men's side. Of course, they were just part of the Copa America. Paraguay really doesn't get a lot of notification here. So we're going to be watching those particular teams here, Coach. What about medal hopefuls? Is there anybody in here that you think, again, kind of the same side? They're not really getting a lot of notoriety against like the Frances and the Argentinas. Who do you think has a chance to medal coming out of the Olympics with this current lineup?
A team I already mentioned again, Japan. Japan's draw sets up really, really nicely for them. They're going to, well, I shouldn't say they're going to, they should win that group. That means they're going to get the runner-up, Uzbekistan, Spain, Dominican Republic, and Egypt. As long as that's not a huge upset, and as long as you're not playing Spain as the runner-up, you really like your chances in that quarterfinal. And then, you win your group knockout stage match. All of a sudden, you're, looking at a Final Four match, and you're already close to getting a medal. I don't think Japan can win it all. I don't know if they're talented enough. But I think the way this tournament shapes up, they are they should be able to medal. And
Part of me wants to give states credit for medal, but in all honesty, they should. I should. My expectations, I guess, is to at least get to the semifinals of the tournament here, which obviously will be medaling for this. But I kind of look at Morocco here. I remember Morocco being in a international friendly a couple years ago. We actually attended that match.
it was a lot of fun.
It was a fun match to watch, and Morocco moved that ball really well during that matchup. They had a few decent opportunities. If they continue that kind of upbeat, fun style of play and a good flow to their game, I feel like Morocco could make good way throughout the tournament. So I'll be watching Morocco as that goes on over the next couple of weeks. Coach, let's get down to the favorites. Who do you expect, or who are you betting on winning the whole deal here in Olympics 2024?
Well, you just watch Spain win the Euros. I think they're a team that's going to be a talking favorite. And then, of course, your world powers right now in the world of soccer. You're looking at Argentina, you're looking at Spain, you're looking at France. I think it's interesting. I think France is interesting. I think we're going to learn a lot about France, just like I think we're going to learn a lot about the U.S. in that first matchup against each other. Does France show up and the U.S. 3-0? Then okay, I think France becomes a favorite. I think France becomes a team that you're like, okay, they may win it all. Does France struggle with the U.S.? Do they drop a game to the U.S.? So I think I'm very interested in that France-United States matchup, that very first game for both of them. I think it's interesting, but I think France is a favorite to medal here.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember here is we're dealing with U23 squads. You're
Correct.
going to see a lot of names that you're not going to recognize.
Correct.
It's not going to be your typical lineups. You're probably not going to see Lamine Yamal, the 17-year-old that you just saw in the Euros for Spain. There's going to be a lot of big names that you're going to be expecting to see, and it's not going to be there. So they're going to give some youngsters an opportunity to, like we said before, to prove themselves to the national teams on if they can be called up, and giving themselves an opportunity. I agree with you. I think France, more loaded roster here. Lacazette, they have the opportunity from the European Championship where, Mbappe didn't play well. Can a youngster, Lacazette, put some balls in the net for a young French team and kind of take care of business? You can't go wrong with Argentina or Spain. They're can be loaded as well. But I'm with you. I like watching France and their chances here. Curious how that's going to fall out in the long run, Coach.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Argentina. That Argentinian roster is loaded. It is at the top with Julian Alvarez, but I think they have players who are playing on this U23 rosters that have World Cup experience. Have experience playing in a World Cup, playing in a tournament like this. And I think that type of experience in a big tournament where, all eyes are on you, I think that experience is something to undervalue.
Absolutely, Coach. Let's move over to the women's side. The women's first game is on the 25th. That is on a Thursday. They are also at 3 p.m. And their first matchup is with Zambia. Again, we've talked about those African teams. On the men's and women's side, they just play a different style. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the European and the, Americas struggle against some of these very physical African sides. So
and much faster than they're used to. A lot of times up and down, counter quickly. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that is a tough draw. I mean, should the U.S. win that game? Of course they should. But I think maybe tough isn't the right word, but I think it's an interesting draw right out of the gate.
Yeah, so Coach, we're going to run down a little bit differently on the women's side. Let's go group by group here. We've got Group A with France, Colombia, Canada, and New Zealand. That is a loaded group there with France clearly one of the Colombia showing us World Cup. They've got quality on their roster. And we know Canada has always been a perennial, I don't want to say powerhouse, but they're up in that mix of causing some problems against other teams. I'm not really sure what to expect from New Zealand here. What are you looking at here, Coach?
I mean, Canada gold medal in 2020, the Tokyo Olympics. So they are the reigning champs, so to speak, when it comes to the Olympics. Yeah. And so I think that they are. I mean, you can't say that they're not a favorite because they should be. They're the reigning gold medalist. They did have to win the CONCACAF playoff to get in. They beat Jamaica 4-1 on aggregate to get into this tournament. So maybe not the same Canadian team that we saw in 2020, but I think they should win this group.
And again, let's reiterate, this is not a U23 situation here on the women's side. This is an all-age inclusive type of rosters. So you're going to see some names that you've seen in USL or maybe in like the Super League in England. Coach, just look into Group B where we have the USA, Zambia, Germany, and Australia. A note out here. Yeah. Australia is not a pushover. They still have Sam Kerr, one of the best strikers in the world. Germany, again, another perennial powerhouse that's going to have to deal with. You got Zambia, we just talked about. They're going to be physical. They're probably going to be fast. Can we handle that kind of physicality? And, of course, you got the Americans. Coach, what are you looking at here in Group B that you look forward to watching?
Well, what I like about this group, and, of course, we were mentioning Zambia a lot because that's who the U.S. plays first, but they're no stranger to this type of stage. You know, they were in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. They didn't make it out of the group stage, but they were there. So they know what this is like. They know what it takes to get out of these groups. So I think this is a really tough group for the U.S. Of course, Germany, I believe Germany won the 2016 Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. Excuse me.
Yeah, you're correct.
So a very interesting group here, you know, but I agree with you. That group, that team, that Argentinian team is going to be really, really. This is a really tough group from top.
I think this is kind of your group of death here. You know, the American women, they haven't won gold medal in Olympics since London 2012. Yeah. So it's been a while since they've taken a gold medal in the Olympics. I look at this as really the toughest group here. USA, Germany, and Australia.
Australia. I think I said Argentinian earlier. I meant Australian. Anyway,
all three of those teams could potentially win the entire thing. So this is going to be interesting to see who ends up moving on out of that group. Coach, just look at Group C where we have Spain, Japan, Nigeria, and Brazil. What do you like in here in this group up?
I mean, that's another tough group. You know, Spain actually, believe it or not, getting their first ever appearance at the Olympic Games. So, interestingly enough, not only is it their team, but they're arguably probably the favorites. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But, you know, they are a really solid squad. But, again, not an easy group. You know, we'll talk about Japan and who is the fourth team? I'm sorry. Brazil, of course, you know, big names that you hear all the time. But Nigeria, they made the quarterfinals, you know, in 2004. They have been here many times before. I believe at the World Cup last time around, they made the knockout stage. So this is a team that should not be undervalued in this tournament.
Yeah, and we've mentioned this before. When you talk about the African teams, I'm not saying they're going to run through, probably win the whole thing, but they're going to steal points in these group matches. So watching Spain versus Japan, that's going to be big to see. Are they going to deal with some draws here? Is it going to come down to the final matchup to get those last wins?
I think this is what happens when you... I don't want to take anything away from the men's side because I understand why they do the U23 side of things. I actually kind of like it. You get to see new names, and it's not necessarily the same country that's going to win it over and over and over again. But on the women's side of things, where they don't do that, you're going to have... I think these 12 teams are all really, really solid. There's going to be players and teams that you know, that you've heard of, and I'm just really intrigued by this women's.
Let me throw this at you here and kind of reverse how we did with the men's side. We know that's in the group stages. Give me your teams. Rank them number one, most likely 2, 3 of who the gold medal in the Olympics.
All right, I like I am Spain. I think Spain is a favorite. it's hard to France, like any of those types of teams. Unfortunately for me, so I think I would go Spain. I think I would go. I think I'm gonna go Australia, who is in the U.S. group, and then I'll put the U.S. as third. You could talk me into Japan in that group.
Yeah.
Of course, you could talk me into France in that group as well. But I don't know. I of course I want the U.S. to get a gold medal, but watching them play over the course of the last 18 months, I don't know if they have that in them for this tournament. I hope I'm wrong, but I do think they're contenders, and I think you have to keep them in that conversation.
Yeah, I'm with you with Spain. I think the way they play in the world, the way we just saw the men play in the European Championship, they have similar styles.
Oh yeah,
very wing heavy and being involved in their workup. Excuse me. Beyond, I like Colombia.
okay.
I remember watching them in the World Cup, and I thought they're starting to get it done. So whatever's going on in Colombia, we just saw the men in the Copa America,
the U.S.
got the men's side, and then they got to the finals of the Copa America and held their own against Argentina, actually taking the extra time. So, and then the women did pretty well in the Women's World Cup not too long ago. I like what they're doing there. I feel like that's that next team that's going to start making a name for themselves. So I've got Spain, Colombia. I'm going to give the U.S. my third spot here.
That's where I am.
I don't expect them to be over the top, the greatest team there. I feel like they've got something they still need to fix, but they've got a quality coach here. I think they can still get things done in the Olympics. I still feel like they're going to get to the semifinal matches at the latest. So outside of that, Coach, we've got our top.
So, and I want to hear your question, but I want to go back to just the United States for just. If you pull up their group again, Coach, I apologize. It is us, Zambia, Germany, Australia. Correct? Is that? Yes.
You're right. Yep.
Is there any hesitation that with Australia and Germany that the out of that group?
I don't think I'm looking at this. There isn't one team that I'm looking at thinking, oh, they're getting through.
Okay.
We know the quality of the Australia's always been there in the World Cups. I just think there is a favorite that you can really go with.
I think this sets up to be, and you mentioned it, there's always that African nation that pulls off a result.
Mm-hmm.
And if we leave that Zambia match in a 2-2 draw or something like that, then all of a sudden, might get a little shaky for the women.
Well, we saw that in European Championships where some teams that you're like, well, they'll get through. And then it came down to the last game of the group stage that they had to win.
Well, and you saw that on. You saw that with the American men in the Copas, and they don't get it done. So I don't know. We both took the U.S. as our third team of who we like to make some noise in this tournament. For me, there is a world in which they don't even get out of their group.
Well, here's the thing. The team that doesn't beat Zambia probably is not moving on.
True.
That's how I feel about it. The Americans having them first, gotta be a W. You gotta win that game.
You have to win that match.
I don't care how you win it.
Yep.
You gotta get all 3 points because you don't know how Germany, Australia are down.
Yep.
And the team in that group that loses to Zambia and draws with them probably is not moving on to the knockout stage.
Yeah, that's a great point. I agree.
All right, Coach, let's dig into, we've got our top 3 teams that we think are going to win. Who's your dark horse? Who's the team that no one's talking about?
Besides you, because I like Colombia as my dark horse.
I love it.
I like that team as my dark horse. I didn't take France. That feels like a kind of a cop out to take as your, as your dark horse. But if you gave and so funny gold medal winners, but Canada always seems to play well at these tournaments.
I like that.
So
I like that.
If you gave me 2, those are my 2. If you make me choose 1, I'm going to ride with your Colombian squad.
I think for my dark horse, I'm watching Nigeria.
Okay. I like that.
It's one of those African teams that you know is going to show up. They just haven't gone far enough to say, hey, we're legit contenders. But as far as I can remember, even on the men's side, they're always causing problems in their tournaments. So I'm watching Nigeria as my dark horse to maybe I think they'll probably get out of the do some. But like we said with Zambia, people struggle against these African teams. They don't know how to handle them.
They do.
So I'm looking forward to that. Coach, again, the women play Thursday, the 25th, 3 p.m. versus Zambia. The men, the 24th, and they play France, also at 3 p.m. I believe both matches, okay, I think all matches, will be on Fox or some type of Fox channel.
Something like that.
So make sure you tune into those matchups. Would be
Folks, let's pick this is what we do. Who's your men's winner? Gold medalist? Who's your women's gold medalist? Where are you going?
for the men's side. I'm taking France.
Oh, okay.
I didn't ride with them in European, but I don't know. I feel a little bit differently on the U23. Riding France on the men's side, and then on the women's side, I'm riding. If they play like they did against in the World Cup, no one can match them.
I'm going Spain as double glust. I'm taking Spain to win both the men's and women's side. I think they're just right now. They're playing so well on both sides, both genders of the ball, so to speak. So very fun because it's the favorite, but sometimes the favorite is a favorite for a reason.
So let me put you on the spot here. Neither of us can to win it. What is your expectation for them in this tournament? Do you think they drop out like the men did in the group stage? Because we know they have a really tough group to get out of.
Yeah.
Are you expecting them to go all the way to the finals and maybe lose in the finals? What are you looking at? What are your expectations of this team? Considering what we've seen against Mexico, Costa Rica, recently here with Coach Emma Hayes.
My expectation is for them to medal. So put that how you want, or do they get the chip game and finish with the silver? But I expect them to medal. Would I be surprised if they play in that bronze medal game and lose? Probably not, especially if they're playing in Argentina for the second time or something like that. But for me, my expectation. But if you tell me 2 weeks into the Olympics that they got out of in the group stage, I would not be 100% shocked.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the coach just got there.
Yeah, agreed.
It's not like she's had a year of going through friendlies and qualifiers to get in here. She's had, 3 matches?
3 or 4 matches.
3 or 4 matches with the team. She's got her camp going on before the Olympics get going. And I think that's where I'm at. We've watched them play. They've had plenty of clean sheets of the last few games. They're just not putting balls in the back of the net, but we see the system. That's what we didn't see with Ananovsky. Players were confused. They didn't know where to be.
Yeah.
Players know where to go in her system.
They do.
They're just missing that product, which they can work on over the next week to try and get that timing down. They're, get in sync with what's going on. And I think that's the X factor. Are they going to make that last piece work in the Olympics? If they don't know they got the group stage, if they're close 3 goals a game.
So what's your expectation? What do you expect?
A minimum of semifinals. There's too much talent. It's no different than how I feel about the Olympics. There's too much talent not to at least get to a semifinals at the least, or not win the whole thing, get to the finals, or we're going to go to silver medal in this one.
Here's a fun question for you. Which would surprise you more?
Okay.
The U.S. winning the gold medal or being knocked out?
For me, being knocked out in the group stage would be the biggest shock. There's a reason they were number 1 for rankings, and they've been 5th. A lot of it had to do with the World Cup failure.
Correct.
But Emma Hayes has had success. We've just talked about this. We see her.
I love what she's doing with the strikers. If you've not gone and really watched, go and watch how those 3 strikers are playing together. It is, and even when they insert a Lynn Williams, or I'm actually been surprised with the, lack of usage of Jaden Shays. Doesn't seem to play her a ton, so I'm interested to see how that unfolds. But those 4 strikers that she's running with are so much fun to watch on the field together. It's what frustrated us with Anilovsky and all those guys is, and I loved Alex Morgan. I still love Alex Morgan. I think she was a great true number 9, but the world doesn't play with a true number 9 anymore. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see. For me, I would be more shocked if they win the gold medal. I'm actually opposite. I don't know why I'm all of a sudden down on the U.S. women's team. I shouldn't be.
I think we've been disappointed too many times.
But surely they also feel that. So they know what happened to the World Cup. They know it wasn't. They know it was unacceptable. They have Koran and all those players have come out and said that's not who we are. And so you got to feel like they're going into this tournament with something to prove as well. And I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, and the more listening to you, we both kind of have the idea that winning it just like they did in the World Cup.
Yeah,
I feel like if Emma Hayes had more time, be playing like a Spain. You can tell she loves using those wings.
Yeah,
she gets Mallory Swanson involved in the center.
Yeah,
she has great concepts of pushing the outside backs. There's a Spain mentality that I'm seeing, and if it clicks in the Olympics, they could go all the way.
Yeah, she loves Jenna Nice-Swan, that outside back. I think it's different, and again, we could talk tactics for days with this, but I think that has potential to. Again, I'm being really negative tonight. I don't know why, but on the flip side of things, those outside backs in this system are getting so high up and so far up the field. Jenna Nice-Swanger in particular. I think Emma Hayes loves her. I like the way Jenna Nice-Swanger plays too, but it's counter attack opportunities, and you saw it against Costa Rica. You saw it against Mexico. You know, when you play those better teams who cannot counter but can make you pay on the counter, I think there's potential there for a slip up from the U.S. team.
Absolutely, Coach. Great conversation here. Again, through the Olympics, it begins next week. Wednesday and Thursday are the Americans' first matchups. We are the A.C.E Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham, joined with Coach Hamilton. Go kick some ace. There we go.